All right, so we're going to start. Thank you guys so much for coming to our um, experienced grad York session for BIPOC students. My name is Richolette Freckleton. I am the Associate Director for Research Scholarship and Awards. Before I jump into it, we're going to start off with the land acknowledgement. So York University recognizes that many Indigenous nations have long-standing relationships with the territories upon which York University campuses are located that precede the establishment of York University. York University acknowledges its presence on the traditional territory of many Indigenous nations. The area known as Takaranto has been taken by the Anishinaabe Nation and the Haudenosaunee Confederacy and the Huron-Wendat. It is now home to many First Nations, the Haudenosaunee. It is now home to many First Nations, Inuit, and Métis communities. We acknowledge the current treaty holders, the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. This territory is subject of the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Covenant, an agreement to peaceably share and care for the Great Lakes region. That ends our land acknowledgement. Okay, so again, thank you guys for coming and taking your lunchtime to be with us. We have a full schedule today where you will be hearing from myself and members of a member of our decanal team. You'll also be hearing from our Eileen, who is our contact at recruitment, and as well as a few of our students. So there'll be a few short presentations, then we hand it over to our panelists to do a Q&A. I'm now going to hand it over to the Associate Dean. Go ahead, Tokunbo.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you're joining us. My name is Tokunbo Ojo. I am an Associate Professor of Global Media Studies and Political Economy of Journalism in the Department of Communication and Media Studies with the grad program Communication and Culture. I am also the Associate Dean of Students at the Faculty of Grad Studies. I welcome each and every one of you, the speakers, and our guests. Today's discussion panel and to Experience York. This panel discussion and the Experience York is also one of the places in which we showcase excellency, particularly from the Black scholars and the BIPOC scholars. Part of our mission at York is to nurture and groom the future leaders for all segments of the society. And for the prospective applicants that are joining us today, I want you to use this moment to actually imagine yourself among the people that will be speaking in this forum next year. See it as an opportunity that your work is actually belong to this institution and there are opportunities for you to flourish. So therefore, being part of the event today, you've not made any mistake. I want you to enjoy your time here, ask a lot of questions, get to know us, and I hope at the end of the panel session, at the end of the event, you will actually see yourself at York University. So I wish you a great time here, and I hope you enjoy yourself. Thanks a lot.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Tokunbo, for those words. My name's Eileen, and I'm the Graduate Recruitment Officer here at York, as Richolette mentioned, and I will just be doing a really quick presentation on an introduction to grad studies and a quick overview of what York offers, how to apply, our funding, before we move into the panel session of the event. So just confirming that everyone can see my screen. And welcome to everyone that is on Zoom and to everyone that's on YouTube as well. Thank you for joining us. Let's go to our next slide here. So we're going to move right into it. And please forgive me if I'm telling you something you already know. I just want to make sure that everyone's operating at the same understanding of grad studies and the same knowledge of entry requirements. So a master's degree, the first level of graduate study, is the next level of university available after you complete your bachelor's or your undergraduate degree. Usually a master's is between 1 to 2 years in length. At York, our programs are between 8 months and 2 years in duration. And that's preset by the program. It's not chosen by a student. That's if you're studying full-time. It could be a different timeline studying part-time. Traditionally, a master's will come in one of 3 formats. So coursework only, major research project, or thesis-based. So a coursework only degree, you're coming into the master's and you're doing a set amount of courses. So usually between 8 to 10. Major research project, you're doing courses still, but fewer. So usually about 6 grad level courses. And then you're also doing a research project that culminates in a paper of about 50 pages. And then lastly, there are thesis-based masters where you would still do some coursework. So usually only about 4 courses overall. And then you would do a large research project, writing a paper of about 100, 120 pages. So most masters will fall within these traditional formats. However, there's some that go outside of the traditional structure. So development studies, you have field work, or social work, you have practicums, that kind of thing. Some programs offer all 3 formats, and it's up to you to choose which you'd like. Others, it's a choice between 2. Others still, it's you want to do this program, you have to do this particular format. If you're wanting to go on and do a PhD in the future, it would be ideal if you did a thesis-based master's, or if not, a major research project. But speaking of PhD, PhD or doctoral are interchangeable terms. It's the highest level available at the university where you can earn an advanced research degree. Programs are usually full-time, between 4 to 6 years long. The amount of time it takes to complete a degree really depends on your research project. So most folks would finish in 4 to 5 years. Potentially it could take longer. With the exception of mechanical engineering at York, you need a master's to go into the PhD. Mechanical engineering does allow direct entry, meaning you go from bachelor's right to a PhD. But for the most part, you need your master's. The format, by and large, is the same. So you would enter a PhD in your first year. Your first year and second year, you're taking courses. You write your qualifying or your comprehensive exam, and then it's years and years of research. So for why someone might want to go to graduate school, if you're maybe on the fence or thinking, I don't know how this might fit into my life, there's 3 main advantages that you would receive or get from pursuing a graduate degree, master's or master's and PhD. So for career advantages, people who hold a master's degree at least have a higher level of employment and higher salary rates within that employment. You'll also develop crucial in-demand employment skills. You can see a list here on the screen. Then for personal advantages, about making friendships, growing your professional network, and the type of work that you do in graduate school with the freedom and self-direction is very unique. So it doesn't often come about in the workforce or in other academic situations. So definitely unique to graduate studies. Then for academic advantages, the chance to contribute to your field, to literally create knowledge, to work with experts, to become an expert yourself, potentially focus really specifically on research that you are very interested in. But whatever your reason or your reasons for wanting to pursue a grad degree, we really want to emphasize that it is accessible. So most programs are funded, in which the university would give you a funding package to help cover the costs of your tuition. It's a low time commitment if you're just interested in a master's. So as I was saying in previous slides, between 8 months and 2 years. And we do have a unique admissions process if you are someone who's got personal or professional experience, lived experience, extenuating circumstances. We consider all of those factors in your application. So it's not just based on grades and references. There is more to holistic application. In terms of your application, what do we consider? Grades. So we look at your GPA from the last 2 years of study. Most programs look for a B+ or above. We look at your resume. So your work experience, your volunteer experience, your research experience, that's in addition, of course, to your education listed. Letters of reference. So programs require either 2 or 3. It's up to them, but they are looking for either academic or professional references. So academic references being someone who has taught you or supervised your research, and professional being someone who has supervised or managed you at work. Statement of interest is really like an academic cover letter, talking about why you want to pursue the program, the research you want to do, the faculty members you want to work with, what you're hoping to do in the future. We actually have a session tomorrow at noon that's how to write a statement of interest with our dean, so highly recommend attending. And then some programs will consider portfolio, others want to see a sample of your writing, but for most programs, these are the core 4 requirements and core 4 considerations: grades, resume, references, statement of interest. In terms of cost, so I've put tuition on the slide here. For most graduate programs, master's or PhD, for a domestic student, so a Canadian citizen or permanent resident, tuition is just under $5,200 for the year. So full-time, that's $1,730 per term, because you're going to school year-round, fall, winter, and summer. For international students, so anyone who's not Canadian citizen or permanent resident, the regular tuition amount for a master's is just under $20,000 per year, so about $6,600 a term, and just under $19,000 per year for a PhD student, so around $6,200 per term, just 3 terms in a year. There are some programs where tuition is above and beyond this regular amount. We could certainly talk about that. If you have questions, love for you to put them in the Q&A. But tuition is obviously what's charged for you to pursue a program with us, but we do, for most programs, also offer funding packages. So a funding package is money given to you by the university to help pursue graduate studies. So we have standard amounts for both master's and PhD, domestic and international. The thing to remember is that consideration for funding is automatic. If your program gives funding, which again, most do, you do not need to apply for this money. You are automatically considered when you apply for a spot in the program. Any money that you receive, the details would be included in your offer letter. So it would be, congratulations, you've got a spot in this program. Here's how much money we will give you either per year or per term to come study with us. At the master's level, the standard package, you don't apply for it. You don't have to pay it back. It's not based on financial need, and there is no work component to it. There's no job you have to do. For PhD students, very similar in that you don't apply for it. You don't have to pay it back. It's not based on financial need, but there is a work component in terms of you would have a guaranteed job as a teaching assistant, 10 hours a week of work between September and April. Potentially, sometimes an international student would master's student would receive a PhD funding package in terms of the dollar amount, if there are TA positions available. But for the most part, these are the numbers you're looking at. If you don't get a funding package or your program just doesn't do funding whatsoever, there's also scholarship opportunities. So scholarships are completely separate from funding in that you need to apply to these opportunities. There's different criteria to be met, like maybe you need certain grades or you're doing a certain research idea, but all of these require a separate application. So first up, there's provincial, tri-council, and federal awards. These can be quite large, like $15,000, $20,000, $25,000, but require an application and one that's quite early on. So usually a year before you would be starting your program is when you should be applying to these. They're not only entrance awards though, so if you miss it or you're like, I'm really overwhelmed, I can't do this all at once, you can apply in your first year for your second year. External awards are not affiliated with the university or the government, but usually private corporations, private foundations. They have grad scholarships that you can apply for. So you can use the money to study at York, but the application isn't through York at all. Academic Excellence Fund is available up to $2,000 a year for grad students to support research or scholarly objectives. York internal awards are between $500 to $5,000 a year, and those are, the money was given to York by donors, so alumni, foundations, corporations, and then they give it out to students in a certain program with the highest GPA or doing research in a certain geographic area. For either of those opportunities, you have to be a student to apply for them, but it's another financial opportunity for support. Then the last ones, and sorry, this is so much information, but we're sharing links in the chat if you want to explore further. York financial assistance are bursaries based on financial need. So once you're a student, you could apply for it, and excuse me, you would apply in the fall for the winter, and it's up to $1,000 usually. So it couldn't pay your tuition payment, but it certainly wouldn't hurt. And then if you're a Canadian citizen or permanent resident, you could apply for OSAP, so the Ontario Student Assistance Program. All of our grad programs are eligible, but it's based on your personal finances. So in terms of timeline for grad school, most grad programs at York only accept new students every September. And that's the same year to year. So if we're talking about fall 2024 admissions, so the next available term, applications will open this Sunday. So October 15th for a September 2024 start. Now, the earliest possible that a deadline will be is December 15th. So some programs, psychology, social work, computer science, history, they have that December 15th deadline. So there's a very short 8-week window that you can apply for fall 2024. Then the next opportunity is fall 2025. Most programs, though, have a bit later of a deadline, so January 15th or February 15th or March 15th. The program chooses the deadline. It's always the 15th of the month, but they choose the month. Decisions will then come out early February is really when they'll start through to June. All decisions are made by each individual academic program. A committee of faculty members within your program are making the admissions decisions. Then July and August, you would connect with your program, usually attend an orientation of some sort, and then September, school would start. So by and large, most programs at York run on this schedule. There's very few that offer a January or a May start. So yeah, that's a quick introduction to York, the admissions process, the requirements. Here are our social channels. We have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube, which many of you know because you're joining us on YouTube right now. In the chat, we'll share our social link tree, and you can follow us on any of these platforms. And then lastly, we'll transition into the panel because I know you're here not to hear from me, but from our current graduate students. But I want to leave you with our email address for grad admissions. It's fgsnews@yorku.ca. We'll put that in the chat as well. You can email us at any time with any question about admissions at York, requirements, anything. And if we don't know, we will find someone who does know. So with that, let me just type it out in the chat as well. So email fgsnews@yorku.ca. And then Richolette, I'll turn it back over to you to get the panel started.
All right. Thank you so much, Eileen. That was very informative. All right. So now on to the good stuff. We are going to be having a chat with our panelists. So I'm going to start off by introducing our panel members, just going over a little bio so that you can get to know them before they join us on screen. So our first panelist is Amanda. Amanda is a first-year master's student at York University in the Historical, Theoretical, and Critical Studies of Psychology program. She's also a member of the Black Students in Psychology Association and the co-founder of the Black Students Mentorship Program, which is a student-led mentorship program geared towards Black undergrad students in the Faculty of Health at York University. Amanda's academic interests are large and include theories of and in psychology, liberation psychology, resilience and resistance, feminist psychologies and transnational feminism, activism and resistance as medicine and subjectivity ontologies, knowledge systems, and epistemologies. Then we have Joab Ogato. He's a scientist and researcher in the field of regenerative medicine, which focuses on advancing the engineering of thick human tissue. His doctoral work in Lausanne School of Engineering, Mechanical Engineering Department centers on developing techniques to fabricate blood vessels, a crucial step towards enabling thick tissue engineering. His daily route includes juggling responsibilities in the lab, teaching in the classroom, and cherishing the time spent with his newly minted daughter, Karen. Congratulations, Joab. Then we have Precious. Precious is a must-listen Black eloquent gender equality speaker. She's renowned for her expertise in the field and her unwavering commitment to fostering inclusivity and equality for all. Drawing upon her vast experience and global perspective, she brings a unique and diverse voice to every speaking engagement, enriching the discourse with her insights as a global talent and an influential representative of minority groups. With a profound dedication to promoting gender equality, Precious has designed and implemented myriad sustainable programs, advocacy campaigns, and training initiatives with the social impact and management consultant space. Her relentless efforts extend to fostering gender equality in the workplace, where she leverages her consultant prowess and conducts extensive research that informs policies through recommendations. Precious is currently pursuing a master's degree in gender, feminist, and women's studies here at York University after a master's degree in peace and development studies from Nigeria. Precious's academic journey has endowed her with a nuanced understanding of gender dynamics, both in theory and in practice. She actively contributes to the academic community as a research associate at the Center for Research on Latin America and Caribbean Studies at a prestigious hub for inter and multidisciplinary research in Latin America and Caribbean Studies, where she also sits as a student representative on the executive board. Last but not least, we have CéAnn. CéAnn Marks is a second-year graduate student pursuing a master's in psychology here at York University. She obtained her bachelor's in forensic psychology from the University of Ontario Institute of Technology, now known as Ontario Tech, graduating with high distinction. Her research journey has spanned over several years, first focusing on forensic psychology research during her undergraduate studies, and post-batch, her research shifted to clinical psychiatry, psychopharmacology research, primarily involved in major depressive disorders and bipolar disorder. Currently, her research focus is on traumatic brain injuries, specifically concussion research. She's looking to examine the sex differences in concussion recovery, particularly in the domains of emotionality and cognitive motor integration. She's pursuing her current graduate studies with the goal of continuing into doctoral clinical psychology program here at York. In addition to the academic growth and research opportunities, she's a part of the Black scholars community and has been a source of inspiration and support for all. As she continues her journey here at York, she's eager to contribute to our collective growth and make lasting contributions to the academic and cultural tapestry of our university. Thank you all for being here today. And I'm sure our attendees are looking forward to hearing from you. So I'm going to start by asking each of you the three main questions, and then we're going to also be taking questions in the Q&A. And if we have any brave souls who want to speak up, please feel free to let us know. We can unmute you for you to speak. So I'm going to start, and just based on who's on my screen, how did you learn about graduate studies and why did you decide to come here? And that first question is for you, Amanda.
Thank you, Richolette. And sorry, I think there's a bit of an echo. I don't know if you can hear it. Okay, I'll keep going and see. Okay. Thank you for having me. I'm in my first year of a master's program, so I'm brand new in graduate studies. I think I've always known that there were graduate studies that were part of the process. I did not necessarily always know how to get there. So that's newer. But the way that I decided specifically for York and the program that I'm in, so I did also my undergrad at York University, so that has become a bit of a family for me. So I was happy that I was able to get in graduate studies and staying at York University. The program itself, which is the program that I'm in my master's, is the Historical, Theoretical, and Critical Studies of Psychology, which is shortened to HTC. It's a pretty unique program because when we think about psychology, we really think often about clinical. And that is the one that is the most sought after, and the one that I actually initially believed that's what I wanted to do. By the time I got to third year, and even more so fourth, my thinking had shifted because of certain classes, certain courses that I took, and certain professors that I had as part of my course. My interests were broader than just psychology and clinical. I did feel like psychology needed something that I felt like something was missing personally, based on my own history as, a war survivor, an African immigrant, and as a Black Canadian woman, essentially. There were things that I wanted to study more in terms of the way that we do psychology and theory. And I was also interested more and more in the history of psychology. And essentially, that's exactly what HTC is about. It's really about being intentional with conducting specialized research in history topics in psychology, as well as theory and meta theory, and doing critique. And so I had classes with some of the best really in the country, and that happened to be at York. So like Dr. Rutherford and Dr. Thomas Teo, and taking their classes kind of solidified my desire to go towards that field. I hope that helps answer that.
Thank you, Amanda. Joab? You're muted.
There we go. You can hear me now. Hi, everyone. My name is Joab. I guess I don't know about everybody else here, but I took a bit of a while before I decided to go into grad school. I worked as my undergrad training was in mechatronic engineering, and I ended up working as a biomedical engineer in a couple of hospitals across the world for about 6-7 years before I decided to go to grad school. And so how I ended up learning about grad school was pretty interesting. So I was working at a hospital, and I always had students coming over to the hospital to tour. And I would give them tours. These were mostly biomedical engineering students, and I would be helping them or showing them the equipment around the hospital. So CT scans, X-rays, MRIs. And so in that process, I got interested in teaching. So I would be invited to universities to teach. And so one morning I told my boss, you know what, I think I want to go and become a professor. And he was like, are you sure? Do you know what you got to do to become a professor? You're going to have to go back to school for many years. I was like, well, I don't know, but, let's see where that journey takes us. And so my interest was kind of unique because my training was purely in engineering, no biology background whatsoever. And if you had my bio, I'm more into biology now and a lot of tissue engineering, human tissue engineering. And so I decided to go and take 2 years of undergrad biology, biochemistry, organic chemistry, and that entire shebang. And so in that process, I was looking for a school to go into. And so in that process, I kind of learned that you kind of gotta get a graduate education before you can become a professor. And that's how I ended up here. Was it the best journey? I think it has been a blast, and I've absolutely loved it. I wish that I went to grad school earlier before I went into the workforce. So that's been my experience.
Thank you, Joab. How about you, Precious?
Can you hear me now? Okay, thank you so much. So for me, I would say my decision to pursue advanced studies, and particularly having a second master's after my first master's, was rooted in a combination of both personal passion and my professional experience. So I have always been deeply passionate on issues related to gender equality, social justice and human rights related issues, thematic areas, basically. So I would say my passion initially led me to work in the social impact space when I finished my bachelor's and immediately went back to school for my master's. So I have always been revolving around the social impact space, committed to driving the MDG goals before we moved into the SDG goals, Sustainable Development Goals, to be in question. So, and I have been privileged to design sustainable programs, initiatives that address social issues in questions. So during my time, while I was working, I would say I found myself increasingly drawn to issues around gender-related aspects and projects, and also more like to stay relevant, the trends, what is happening around the global sector. So I would say I became a bit of inspired, by the potential for academic research in that place. I was initially doing community-based research in order to design programs that would actually impact communities in question. So I would say, I was now drawn to a bit of academic research, critical analysis to inform and drive meaningful change that I cared about, and the organization I work with was also drawing. So in the context of my decision to pursue graduate studies, it became a bit clearer, and I realized that to be more effective in my work and to also stay relevant as a global voice in that aspect, I need to aspect related to diversity, equity, and inclusion, feminist studies and gender-related issues in question. I needed to deepen my understanding and also acquire more comprehensive or more loaded academic foundation with regards to that. While doing my master's in peace and development studies, I did a bit of gender-related studies, but just more like a foundational. So I needed more. So I feel it's a natural progression for both my professional experience that allowed me to channel my passion into a more focused and rigorous pursuit. So when it came to choosing the program, I would say York University Gender, Feminist, and Women's Studies actually stood out for me as an ideal fit because of a whole lot of research I did around it. I found out that the School of the Founders College, the School of Gender, Feminist, and Women's Studies happened to be the first in Canada. And I was like, oh, okay, that's actually an interesting one. And also, not only that, the program's commitment to social justice, also being intersectionality and its emphasis, on practical application on what you learn in class and carrying it out in the field actually resonated with me. Then also, I was also a bit familiar with some of the professors, given that I was reading their work, what they have actually been doing in that space. There are a whole lot I won't even begin to mention. Then also, I would say York University's diverse student body also offered me more like a dynamic learning environment where I could grow, which I read, and I would say that I have actually experienced that while being here. So yeah, that's it for me.
Thank you, Precious. CéAnn, how about you?
Can you hear me? Perfect. Hi, everyone. So for me, I kind of learned about grad school. It was partially through a little bit of my own research, but it was mainly through an undergraduate professor. And he was kind of explaining to us that in the area of psychology, if you wanted to go on to do, further things in terms of in a clinical aspect, you need to go and study more and go to graduate school. So that was the main thing for me. And the main reason I decided to go to York was because York is very well known for their psychology program, and also because of the number of specializations that psychology has. So I think there's about 7 specializations, and that really would allow me to kind of narrow in on the type of research I wanted to do, specifically in a psychology sense. And ultimately, another part of my goal, as Richolette mentioned in my bio, this was a necessary step in order for me to, kind of attain my career goals. The ultimate goal for me is to become a clinical psychologist. So this was really a necessary step that I would have to take to achieve those goals.
Thank you. All right. So tell us, what was your experience like when you're applying for the program? And do you have any tips for attendees here who are currently in the application stage? I'll start with you again, Amanda.
Well, if anybody here is starting to apply, I feel for you, because that it's very nerve-wracking to apply. What I would say is that, so my experience first. My experience has been, it was nerve-wracking. It was, I was in between figuring out what I wanted to write in my letter, in my statement rather, and how to write a statement. I wasn't sure how to do that, so I did go to the event that's happening tomorrow. I did go to a few of those to kind of understand what was expected, because sometimes it's kind of difficult to know exactly what to write just by looking at the requirement. You kind of want to get a better sense of what that looks like, or at least I wanted to know what that kind of looks like. So one of the things that was suggested to me just through community at York, etc., was to just talk to other people who have done it already. So if you haven't, that can be helpful. I guess that's what we're doing here as well. Getting somebody else to kind of read your statement and just getting a second pair of eyes, or a third even. So that's what I did, is to get a few people to read my statement, so it was coherent and it just that it made sense. But on my side, I also wanted to be sure that what I was asking for, or what I was applying for, is really what I wanted to do. So that did require for me to think about the fact that if I get accepted, there's also, there's a few years that I have to think about, because just like Joab, I have been thinking about doing a professorship later on, and that means a few years in graduate school. So I had to think about all of that. The second thing I thought about was who I was writing to. So I looked at the professors who were teaching at that level and in that program. I paid attention to what kind of research they were doing. One, to see if it aligns with what I'm thinking of doing, but two, to know what they might be reading, if they're reading my letter, for example, and my application in general. So those were the things that I thought about, and the steps that I took in order to apply. Starting early is great. The earlier the better, because time goes really fast. So try a few things. If you're going to tomorrow's event about statement writing and all of that, maybe also start writing one, because some questions will come from actually writing. So write something. You don't need to show it to anyone, just for you to kind of know what's coming up for you, and that will help you ask some questions as well. Sorry, was there another question, Richolette? Was that it?
No, that was it. Tips and what were your experiences? How about you, Joab? Any tips? What was your experience when you were applying to the program?
I think the experience was interesting. So I applied to a couple of professors, a couple of different schools, and I was looking I knew what I was interested in, and my interests were very specific. And the bad thing about being very specific is that you end up having a very small pool of where you can fit. So first tip is be more broad. Don't be like me. Don't have a very specific niche of where you want to go into in terms of your research. So being that I had a very specific area of research that I wanted to go into, probably not very concentrated, very few professors doing that kind of research, and then applying to them, and then probably I want to imagine there was a large pool of students also applying into those positions or those labs, and for that reason I got so the first round of application I kind of got rejected a little bit. Well, not rejected really, but nobody ever got back to me. And so my imagination was that, they probably never saw my email, or they decided never to reach out to me. And so later on, I learned that there's good times to reach out to labs if you want to do a research master's or research PhD. And the best time to reach out is kind of like towards the middle of a semester. And this is because earlier on in the semester, so right about now, or a couple months before now, so let's say beginning of September, beginning of January, or professors are kind of busy because a new course, so they got new students and they kind of get their coursework organized. They got a bunch of emails from their own students where they're teaching, and so that kind of becomes it's possible for your email to get lost in that bunch of emails, the emails that they're getting. And another thing that I learned is that this could be helpful for someone who's applying from an international destination, and like from away from Canada. Is that the time you send your email could also be helpful. So it may be helpful not to send your email maybe when it's late at night over here. So kind of try finding out the time zone or the time differences, and then sending an email when it's more towards the time when this professor might be awake. So kind of like either early in the morning, so like 8 a.m. or something like that. Maybe at that point, your email, gets to them, it's kind of like the very top, and they're more tempted to open your email. And then the last tip is your subject line. So this is interesting. So I sent my professor a couple of emails. He never opened the emails, the professor that I'm with right now. And so one day I'm walking the streets of York and I see him. And I never talked to him before. And so I decided, you know what, today I'm going to talk to this guy. So I'd gotten responses from a couple of professors before this, and they told me, let's hang out for a coffee and let's see what your interests are and stuff like that. Well, we never hung out for that coffee with those professors. But so this guy is walking down the streets of York, and I see him and I'm like, man, I got to talk to him. But I'm kind of scared because maybe talking to him now may not be the best time, or maybe it might be weird. He might think I'm stalking him, which he still thinks today that I was stalking him. But anyways, so I walked to him and I'm like, hi, Terry, or hi, Professor Terry. And he turns around and looks at me, and I stretch out my hand to shake his hand. And it happened that during earlier on in COVID, COVID had just started. Still, stuff was still open, but COVID had started. So he doesn't shake my hand. I'm like, oh boy, okay. So maybe I'm not supposed to shake his hand. So I pitch myself for 30 seconds. My name is so and so. I'm interested in your lab. This is what I'm doing right now, and I would love to be in your lab. And it's like, okay, so we're walking down to, I think I was going to class or something. So we're walking down the corridor, and then he tells me, so send me an email today and say that we met in this building today. And I think that email got me admitted because he responded. He ended up responding a month later, but he responded nonetheless, and I got it. Moral of the story: I think your subject line you can write it to be catchy, a little bit catchy. So your experience may be different from mine. You may probably never meet your professor in the corridors like I did, but if you meet them tomorrow in tomorrow's event, like Amanda said, or in some other networking event, you may want to set yourself apart by the way you communicate to them. And last tip is what Amanda just said, going out and meeting professors. So this could be either from your activities that are organized by your own undergraduate program, or even you reaching out to want to go and volunteer in labs. So when you go and volunteer in some of these labs, there's some skills that you get that you might never have gotten just by attending your course labs, like attending your biology 1001 or chemistry 2001 labs. Those experiences you get in the labs are nice and helpful, but they are not as analytic as what you would get in doing master's or PhD experiments or helping out in those experiments. And so when you go out and volunteer in these labs, those networks you kind of get in working in those labs could help you in connecting with future your future application, strengthening your future application, because you kind of say that I got these skills that I got volunteering in this lab and something like that. So yes, that was my experience applying to my program, and those are the tips that I have for you folks who are planning to apply in the future.
Thank you, Joab. Very, very interesting. How about you, Precious? You're muted.
Okay. So what I was saying is that let me start with, first of all, picking up with what Joab said with regards to time zone. Yeah. So I am an African student. I'm an international student. So I can really relate, because I know when I was sending an email out during that period, I was calculating the time zone with regards to when the professors get the email. I don't want to send an email that will get down and my email will not be seen. So that is actually that's actually a good one. And that was one of the things I actually did when I was trying to apply. So the first thing I would say is that clarify your goals. What is your goal? What do you want to achieve? Not just you want to get into grad school. After grad school, what next? Because time actually runs so fast. I started last year, 2020, and 1 year it's gone. Like, and you kind of like, okay, so what's the next thing for you to do? So clarifying your goal is very, very important. You need to sit down and ask yourself, what do I want to study? What do I want to go for grad school for? What is it going to help me with? So clarifying that goal would help you in picking up your program and knowing if that program you want to do is going to help you accelerate in your career or whatever you want to do, whatever you want to achieve it for. So clarifying your goal is actually something that is very, very important. So I try to clarify my goal. I ask my question, Precious, what do you want to do? Why do you want to get this additional degree? What is the goal behind this? So clarifying your goal is actually very, very important. Then another thing I did was that I did a whole lot of research. So research. I can really not overemphasize like the importance of doing research. I blocked out 2 hours of my everyday because I was working back in my own country, a full-time senior project manager, and I blocked out 2 hours every day to research when I wanted to go back to grad school to say, okay, what do I want to do? I've clarified my goals. So which school is good for me? What is best for me to write? So you need to do research about the school, research about the program in question, then research about the professors who are in this department, research about the professors whose interest aligns with your goal. Remember, while clarifying your goal, you already know what you feel like, okay, I think this is what I want to research on. It's a research-based program. This is what I want to research on. These are the professors who are interested in what I am doing, or who will be interested in what I am doing, who are currently doing this working on this thematic area, doing this research. So these are what they are doing. So that is very, very important. You need to block out the time to say, okay, this is what you have to do. And although it might seem as if, because the application window is opening this Sunday, it might seem as if, oh, it's late, because the truth was that I started researching like before the application window opens. Like this started happening around February, March of 2020. Yeah, of 2021. Yeah, before I actually applied. So even if you have not done much of that, bring out a huge sum of time for yourself and do a whole lot of research, thorough research with regards to that. Then another thing I did was that I leverage on LinkedIn to connect with students who have studied gender, feminist, and women's studies at York University, or who are currently doing their PhD. Yeah, so that is very important, because I wanted to get into the mind of the student to know how, like, what was the process like for you when you were applying into this school? What is the academic experience like? Apart from the things I read, apart from all the things, having a one-on-one with someone who have already studied the program or who is currently in the system is very, very important. And I would say I connected with 2 students and they were very, very helpful. So just leverage on LinkedIn, send a connection request, ensure that you add a note on the connection request. Don't just send an empty connection request, add a note to say, hi, I'm this, I want to reach out because of this. So I connected with 2 students who were very, very amazing, Ife and Ellie, who were very amazing, who gave me insight and the rest of that. Then with regards to sending an email to professors, I would say they were very, like, while I was reaching out, they were very responsive, I would say. Like, all the emails I sent out to the professors, like the 2 professors in York, like, they were very, very responsive, in as much as, how would I put it? Like, they haven't met me or anything. Like, for my department, like for my program. They were very responsive. They gave me the professor I'm working with now, Professor Riley. She was very responsive, and I've already known, oh, this is who I want to work with. This is the area of my research, and she was very responsive, and she gave me insight as well. Oh, this is what you need to do, but all the best and that, yeah. So then also the graduate assistant were very helpful, and the director of my program. So just craft an email. Don't make it very long email. Just go straight to the point, and also sell yourself. Know that you're applying for graduate. So you're kind of marketing yourself, because the application is very competitive. I will not lie about that one. But know that, so because of that, know how to market yourself. You want to get into this school. Why should you stand out? So look at yourself as a product. So I am a product. What have I done? What will the founders college get by admitting me into their school? Yeah, because I'm a huge resource. So look at yourself and send an email in a way that you are marketing yourself to them. So not too long of an email, but more like just go straight to the point with regards to that. Then another thing I would say that actually helped me was putting in application early. Ensure that you turn in your application on time. I would say, like, don't wait to the last minute, and writing your statement of research. And that is where also you would actually leverage on a whole lot of research that I have already mentioned. While writing my statement of research, I know, and that is one of your marketing that is one of your marketing feature. Yeah, that is one of the marketing feature that you're using. So because that is where you're telling your story, that is where you're telling why you want to get into grad school, and that is why you're telling what you have done and what you feel that you want to do in future, and what you feel that why you feel that you are a great candidate. And yeah, the whole thing. So ensure that you start up early and start building on that particular feature. It's very, very important. And just like Amanda said, getting someone to review that. Don't just write it and just apply. And that's the reason why starting early. Write it, read it over and over and over and over again, and not at the same time. Like, you give yourself some time and read. I would always have something to correct. Even the one I applied with, I know if I read it now, I will have something to correct on it. Then also give someone to read it, to ensure, like, okay, read this thing and see if it's coherent enough. What do you have any questions? Because they are not seeing you at the first. It's when they have finished that, if they want to have an interview with you. But what you are writing will determine if they will have questions and all that. Yeah. I don't know if I'm missing any other thing, but yeah, these are the things top of my head now.
Thank you. Would you like to add anything, CéAnn?
Yeah, I just have a little bit to add. So for me, in terms of my experience applying, it was pretty interesting. So I applied twice to York, and the second time I got in. And with that would be one of my points, or one of my tips. And this is kind of in the worst case scenario if you really don't get in, because it happens to a lot of people. What I did was I wanted to know where my application fell short. So I reached out to the graduate administrative assistant, and I asked her if she could just give me some tips on my application. And one of the areas where I fell short was additional research. So I did an undergraduate honors thesis, but there's a lot of applicants who had additional research experience. So that's where I fell short. So in that year, so between both application periods from one year to the next, I took that time and I was able to get a number of volunteer research assistant positions that helped me bolster my application for the next period that I got in. So that would be, worst case scenario. Sometimes you're not able to get that information from the school, but if you are, that's also it's a really great a great way to find out how you can improve if you fell short in some way. And a lot of these points were touched on earlier, but I would say give yourself enough time to prepare your application. Also, in terms of entrance tests, make sure you prepare well. So some programs require entrance tests like GREs and different things like that. It can be overwhelming if you're doing all of this in the same time that you're preparing your application. So try to get those done early and then give yourself enough time to do the application. Another thing, make sure your research goals, again, align with your potential supervisor, just in terms of the amount of resources and knowledge that they can provide you. It's best aligned if you, have research goals that are similar. And again, this point was mentioned many times by my fellow panelists, but have someone review your application materials, I think, is a very, very important point. You want to make sure that everything makes sense. Sometimes when you're kind of from an internal perspective, everything seems like, it makes sense. But if you give it to someone else, they might have some tips or things you can add just to kind of provide a little bit of clarity that can, I guess, help the admissions committee kind of understand your application better. So I think that's all I had to add.
Thank you, CéAnn. All right, so what has been your experience in your graduate program? And again, I'm going to start again with you, Amanda.
Yes, so graduate studies is definitely different. Personally, for the better. So first, there's smaller classrooms. I think the most that any of my classes have is maybe 15 or 16 people. And so that's something to keep in mind. There's smaller classrooms, more opportunities to share your perspective. And this is something that can be challenging, and it's definitely challenged me. But it's also great because you get to participate. At this point, you do start to feel more, and your master's program and probably your doctoral as well start to make you feel more like a scholar, which means you are not just learning, you're also creating knowledge. You're thinking about, your contribution to like both the academic world, but also beyond that, right? And so in that sense, that's what's really different. You're producing now, if that makes sense. And so my experience has been positive. I got lucky with that I got connected or I got matched with supervisors that I really wanted to work with. But that's also like, it's luck, but it's also because I've worked really hard to get connected to them to before I even applied, where I've had conversations with them, I've taken their courses, and so I think that helped in that sense to get the supervisors that I want, both because of what they study as well. That's really aligned with the things that I want to do and how I want to contribute to the field of psychology, but also because I've gotten a chance to know who they are as people, and knowing that we can connect, which means I have a support system basically. But that can't just be your support system. I've also learned from, and this is from third, fourth year, having a support system in the community, in the academic community and beyond is extremely important. So I think that is helping me in the places where I feel the most challenged, to have people that I can talk to or can ask questions to, can just kind of run some ideas to. And, graduate school, because there's less, there's just a smaller pool of students, can be good because you have more directed support, I think is kind of what I want to say. So far it's been positive, but I do know that it's, I'm in the first semester of my first year, but I've had a chance to also speak to students who are in a PhD program within my program, at the PhD level. And I think that's helping me understand my trajectory. So far so good, let's say.
Thank you, Amanda. Joab.
I think the experience has been beautiful in the sense that I have a friendly professor, and maybe I pray that you do get a friendly professor when you get into your program. I hang out with my professor, we go out for lunch, and we share, personal details about our family and stuff like that. And you're going to realize that is very helpful when you are in your grad program. And here's why. Life is very busy. You have lots of data to generate. You have lots of deadline to meet. You're probably going to be TAing, so you have a bunch of students to attend to. And maybe you have a job, part-time job, probably, I don't know. So that's probably going to be busy as well. And you have your family life to juggle with. And it can get overwhelming. And so it would be helpful when you are both in a friendly lab, and most importantly, you got a professor who understands. And I'm thankful that I have a professor who understands. So that's been my experience so far. So I'm very thankful to be in my lab. I wouldn't choose any other lab for this. Well, I know that you guys have beautiful labs, Amanda, Precious, and CéAnn, and it's beautiful. But I'm thankful for mine.
Thank you, Joel. Precious, how about you? What has your experience been in your program?
I caught it, Joab, no problem. All our labs are beautiful. So for me, my experience has been what I would describe as incredibly enriching and transformative, because I've had the privilege of learning from exceptional faculty members at GFWS who are not only experts in their field, but they are also deeply committed to social justice and gender equality related issues. And they are also very welcoming, because for me as an international student, leaving what you know back, leaving what you have built over the years back home and coming into a new community where you're starting off from afresh, I must tell you, it's not funny. It's very challenging, but throughout my experience, I've had the support of amazing professors who have been really, really helpful in helping me navigate this aspect of my journey. So one of the standout aspect of my experience has been, the diverse and inclusive academic environment at York University at my department. So, and also I love that how the program commitment to intersectionality and the inclusion of multiple perspectives has been allowed while having in classes, having thought-provoking discussions, comprehensive gender-related issues, and having everyone share their experience or what they feel, their take on that. So engaging with students from various backgrounds has actually broadened my understanding and I would say proved to be more holistic in every aspect. Then also the coursework, it's like it's not funny, I must say. It has been very rigorous and at the same time intellectually stimulating, I must say. A bit of challenging to me, given the fact that I'm trying to grasp everything I need to grasp within a very short time frame, and also critically engage with the latest research and theoretical framework around gender related issues. So I've had the opportunity to delve into topics that I haven't done before, and it has been like I have built my capacity in that aspect. I've built my capacity in several feminist theories, social justice movement that I have a tip of idea before, but now I know what I know. So beyond nothing also beyond the classroom, I have been involved in various extracurricular activities. I think this is something we should do more often as well, because we're trying to balance you need to stay balanced, more like a work-life balance for you as a student. So but my experience in total, I must say my experience with the program has been profound. It has been an inspiring one. It has reinforced my commitment here. It has reinforced my commitment to social impact related issues, and also deepen my understanding on the complexity surrounding gender and feminist issues in this part of the world and also in Africa.
Thank you, Precious. How about you, CéAnn?
Thank you. So my experience, I think thus far, it's been really, really good. But just to kind of keep it short, I think the main three things for me, would be number one, the amount of research, knowledge, and experience that I'm gaining. It's much more in depth, and more a little more comprehensive than obviously anything you would experience in undergrad. So that's been great for me. I've been learning a lot. The second, probably attending conferences, which is a really good experience. That kind of ties into my third point, which is networking, with people in my field. It's been a really good experience, especially in conferences, to kind of see the other research in your field, that's up and coming, and to network with people that you might be interacting with a lot in the future, especially in an academic and research environment. So yeah.
Perfect. Thank you guys so much for, indulging us with the questions and just letting us know how your experiences have been. We're going to turn it over now to questions that we've received from our Q&A.
Yeah, so Richolette, we've actually had a ton of questions come in from YouTube, some for some of our specific panelists. We can start with this one. A question specifically for CéAnn. Thank you so much for sharing about being refused for your first application. I'm really worried that this will happen to me. How did you deal with that? And what was your experience like applying again? And just a commentary for me, that happens all the time. It is very common just with the numbers of graduate school. So that it's a very common experience. But over to you, CéAnn.
Yeah, so the experience, I can't lie, it was a little disheartening, and slightly overwhelming, especially when you think that everything in your application, it looks good, you think you check all the boxes, and then you just get this rejection. It's a little overwhelming. But I think for me, the important thing was to kind of try to remove myself from the emotions, as hard as that is, and really kind of take a look at the bigger picture and say, what do I need to do in order to accomplish this? If this is really what I want to do, if I want to go to grad school because it aligns with my goals or whatever the reason may be, I need to, put these things in place. So that was the reason for me why I reached out to the grad office to see what I could do. So I spoke with her. She's really, really gracious. She gave me some tips. We spoke on the phone, and she said, one of the areas, I think I said one area, but two areas actually, where I fell short was additional research experience, even though I had some, and also publications. A lot of applicants had publications. So if that was something that I could do, it would help. And that's what I focused on for that year in between applying to the next cycle. And it was tough, that aspect as well, because a year is kind of a short amount of time to reach out to different labs and try to get everything going. But I was able to find one, which was really good. And it really, I think, taught me a lot about the research process that I didn't get from the undergrad aspect. And I really think that everything happens for a reason. And in hindsight, I kind of am glad I didn't get in when I did, because I don't think it would have been an okay experience. Like, I don't think I would have done poorly, but I think everything happening the way it did, it properly set me up and poised me to kind of be able to handle grad school a little bit better. So I hope that answers the question.
If I might also add to that, there are a number of factors for rejection, and it's always important not to take it in a personal way. So I'm speaking from the faculty standpoint, looking at the application. No, it could be simple things such as your reference letter. So it's extremely important, before you apply, identify people that truly understand you, your work, and your mission of going to grad school. Those letters, they could make or break. Another aspect is the statement of interest. A lot of applicants don't actually do their due diligence in understanding the purpose of the program and what they want to accomplish out of the program. So you might apply because you feel like, okay, I need to go to grad school. But ideally, when they are making decision, if there's nobody on the faculty that can supervise your project, right away, your application is moved into the no. You might be all super A student, but there has to be individual or group of people that can take you on as student. So broadly, the process is holistic, but at the same time, the process also requires you doing your own due diligence. And if you find yourself in the position of being rejected, a lot of grad program director will be willing to sit down with you. They might not give you specific relating to reference letter because it could be confidentiality matter, but they can tell you, well, get better letter without getting into specific. They could also tell you, well, when you're writing your statement, I liked XYZ. They could be something simple as grade because the pool of applicants varies from years to year. Some year, you just have strong pool. Some year, you actually might be the top of the pile. So in all honesty, it's all part of the process. It's not about you. It's just a competition for the sport also. Thank you.
Well,
Thank
thank
you,
you for
Tokunbo.
adding. We have another question for Amanda. Someone is wanting more information about the Black Students Mentorship Program, as mentioned in your background.
Yes, so I can tell you a little bit about what it is. I can also share their email address if that's helpful at all. But essentially, the Black Student Mentorship Program was created because directly from the Black Student in Psychology Association, which I was a part of from the beginning, not from the since I returned to school. So essentially, it was created because we saw a kind of gap between the way that we could see, undergraduate studies. There is still a lot of diversity in terms of ethnicities and race, etc. But when we look at the graduate level, we noticed that there were much less diversity, and we wanted to be part of the solution. Basically, we wanted to understand why there was such a gap, why there was such a difference, why there was such a drop, or whether it was a drop where people drop out, or whether it was people feeling pushed out, where they might not think that graduate studies is for them. Which is also a very valid kind of concern that some of you may also be thinking about. Where you look at the graduate student body and generally what is being taught and feeling like maybe you don't belong there. So this was created by students for students. Essentially, it's fully student-led. So again, from the students who are in the Black Student in Psychology Association, but it expanded from being a mentorship program for Black student in psychology to Black student in the Faculty of Health in general. And the point of it is to help address that lack and that gap. So the goal of BSMP is to establish mentorship and community for Black undergraduate students in the Faculty of Health, and connecting them to each other, but also connecting them to mentors and to Black mentors specifically. And so Black mentors can be students at the graduate level. There's also some faculty members who have signed up to be mentors. But we look also a little bit outside of the university sometimes as well, just because the problem is that there's not a lot, and we also don't want to put all the work on people who are also already doing a lot of work and who are kind of spread thin. The drive of it is because we want to see more people who look like us in graduate studies, but also because we truly believe that a scholarship that includes multiple voices will provide better health nationally, generally anyways, and we just need a diversity of lived experience, and that just will make the work better and the support better generally. And so I'm happy to share the email for BSMP for those who want to do that. We are now in our third year. It started in we created in 2021 and we started the pilot in January of 2022. And so, yes, I'll just put maybe the email address in the chat. I hope that helps answer the question.
Yes, absolutely. That's perfect. And we'll make sure the email gets shared with all participants so that they can reach out if it applies. For sure. 2 more questions because we're at about 5 minutes left in the event. One for Joab and then one for our associate dean, which will end on that one. So Joab, someone asked why you picked the engineering program specifically to do your research in. They need inspiration. Engineering is really hard and they want to make a positive impact, but I think it's a bit of a struggle. So any words of advice you have there?
Yeah, thanks. I will tell you why I picked engineering. Don't pick it though, because of my reason. The reason why I picked engineering is because my undergrad was in engineering. And that was the easiest for me to get into. Everything else I didn't have grades for, and I probably would need a longer path to get into those programs. I, however, can tell you why engineering would be a good program, even if your background is not in engineering. You are seated down looking at me on this computer, probably, or on your phone. That is possible because of engineering. So engineers create the world. We create everything you see around you. We think about it, we design it, we build it, we commission it, we give it to you, you use it, you break it, we fix it. And coming from that perspective, not blowing my trumpet or anything, I think that as an engineer, you become helpful in society. Everybody has their place in society. Psychologists here do help us in their own way. And I also believe that while engineering could be thought of as a hard program, or having a couple of aspects in it that are hard, we do need engineers. Now, I don't think that it is very hard. If you can do a little bit of math, a little bit of physics, and maybe throw in some other discipline, maybe chemistry or even English, then engineering becomes possible. And you want to think about it from this perspective. Is there anything that I can do to make someone else's life better? And if you come from that perspective with that passion and build on that passion, then anything that is hard becomes easier. And you have people to guide you, to hold your hand. You won't be alone. You would have your lab members. Of course, you're going to interview with them. You'll have your professors, and you would have the community. At Lassonde, we have a beautiful community, lab technicians, other students, other faculty, and they're all here for your success, for my success. If you come to Lassonde, I'll be here for your success as well. And so you will not be alone. We'll be in this together. So welcome to the engineering program at Lassonde.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. Hopefully the person who asked that question can take some heart from that. And yes, it's a great way to be able to make a difference. Professor Ojo, if you don't mind, we just have one question that squeaked in for Precious. If I can ask that before, we're still looking to wrap up at 1:30, so I'll do Precious then. Professor Ojo, so for Precious, someone else is an international student as well, wondering what the transition to Canada is like. How was that for you? And if you went from a smaller to a larger university as well, I think this person is a student at a much smaller place. So what was that like for you?
That's a very great question. So I would say the transition for me, I have I write a lot. I plan a lot. I'm kind of like that kind of strategy girl. So I said, networking is very important. Let me start with. So you are starting afresh. You're trying to build a new community for yourself. So I tried as much as possible to draw down a strategy. How do I want to transition well? What do I want to be known for? What do I want to build in this place? So networking was actually, I would say, that's the signature thing of being intentional, going for networking events. So when it comes to networking events, so it depends on what do you want to know, what's your space. Look out for those networking opportunities. Look out for those networking events that are related to what you're trying to pursue for yourself in question. So finding out, I understand the fact that like the coursework is very intense for me. So what I did was that I said, okay, I would attend a networking event twice in a month or thrice in a month. So, but the minimum is twice in a month. And also, I was very intentional with the people I try to connect with. The networking event I need to go. It's not every networking event that I attend, but I feel if I see, okay, this is event, it's connected to what I am looking for. And I look out for the people, for instance, the speakers who will be at this event. Do I need to connect to these people? I get to know about them. And just like Joab, I think, yeah, it's Joab that said he was ready enough. He had a 30-second speech that he gave to his present supervisor. So those people, you go for a networking event. You don't just go for a networking event just for going sake. You already map out, this is who you are, this is what you want to pitch to this group of people. So depending, you have to prepare yourself a whole lot. You need to be prepared because you don't know where you're going to meet opportunities. It could be in the walkway, it could be at a real networking event or whatever the case may be. So being prepared, knowing who you are to say, oh, hi, I'm Precious, this is who I am, this is where I'm going, this is where I am, this is where I'm going, and this is why you should connect with me, like something in that regard. So networking event was it for me to transition and also trying to find your communities. So your communities might not be necessarily people from where you come from, but people who understand your language, people who are doing what you love. So finding a community, it could be a student-led community, it could be more like student and professional-led communities, but finding communities, and it still boils down to networking. So map out your strategy, have a strategy that you need to have a strategy on ground, and need to look for events that you need to go. Be prepared and know how to sell yourself to people, to connect with these people. Finding your community, people who are not necessarily the same color with you. It might be the same color with you. Start with people from the same color with you, but you don't have to bust yourself up only into people who are of the same color with you, because we're talking about inclusion. Anyway, for me, that's what I stand for: inclusion, diversity, because there's beauty in that. I must tell you, there is a whole lot of beauty. So I find my community not only in Black people, but also in other people. Yeah. So yeah, that's it for me. I'm just trying to wrap up. Then also leverage on LinkedIn to also connect with people virtually.
That's great. Thank you. I think there's a thread throughout all of our panelists in that everyone has just such a vision for where they're going or where they'd like to see themselves, and just doing amazing work to get there. The last question we have is for our Associate Dean, Professor Ojo, and there's been half a dozen comments about people saying, wow, it's so great to see someone in a senior leadership position. You're the dean, that's amazing. So a question from someone, a BIPOC student who had a specific question. She's applying and she just wanted to know what your advice. So she's from Ghana. Sorry, I should mention. What is one practice or takeaway, the number one we should take away when starting to apply?
Well, the number one takeaway: do your own work about the program. It's extremely important. So I'm part of the media studies program. My program doesn't train people in public relations. So when we get the application that I'm applying to do MA in communication and culture, and I want to be a PR specialist, right away, that application will be rejected. 2, also reach out to the faculty members that you want to work with. In sciences and engineering, you need, to a degree, a confirmed supervisor. In humanity and social sciences, you don't need. But what that implies is this: you've gotten people that indicate indirectly that they will be able to work with you. 3, ensure reference letter. You line it up that those letters are received on time. They are not late. Your statement, write, and rewrite several times. It's not something that you do the night before. because that's the first thing many people will read before they start looking at your grade. Yes, grade does matter. I've been in the position in which I've admitted students with a B plus over A students because they have the package that was stronger than somebody with A. So broadly, you do your own work, do your due diligence. And if you're applying as international student also, keep in mind, it's highly competitive. So most programs at York, they admit 2 to 5 international students per year. This is where it becomes competitive. They pick the top 2 or the top 5 out of the pool of 150. So this is also where the issue of rejection comes in. Don't take it personal. Just because you didn't make it this year doesn't mean that you will not make it in the future, but it's extremely crucial to do your own work and make sure that you cross-check all the requirements before you submit and apply before the deadline several weeks ahead, because people are looking at the application right as they come in. So I hope that helps in terms of giving you some tip on the process.
That's great. Thank you. And yes, applying early, especially if you're an international student with a bunch of different documents to submit, best advice. So we'll wrap it up there because we're after 1:30 now. And just to thank you so much to all our panelists for taking the time to join us today. I'm so glad we recorded this so that we'll be able to share it online. Early November will be the goal. But thank you to all the students who attended and asked amazing questions. We really appreciate it. We've put our links to future EGY events in the chat, as well as the FGS email. Anyone interested in grad studies can email us. And if you're wanting to be connected with a panelist, maybe we could do that as well. But ultimately, thank you everyone so much for attending, and have a great rest of your day.